The cold December wind cut through Judith Okoro's thin coat as she stepped off the crowded airport shuttle, heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and excitement. America, the land she had dreamed about since childhood. Skyscrapers piercing clouds, neon lights promising opportunity, streets where fortunes were made and lives were transformed. But her dream began to crumble the moment she reached passport control. The officer frowned at her documents. A small typographical error in her surname. She tried to explain, voice trembling, that it was only a printing mistake from the embassy in Lagos. They didn't listen. Before she could call anyone, uniformed men surrounded her, shackled her wrists, and led her down a hallway that smelled of bleach and cold steel. She spent the first night in a fluorescent-lit detention room, staring at a cracked ceiling tile and praying. The second night was worse. A cell in the back of an immigration facility where dreams went to die. Days bled into weeks. Every hearing delayed. Every promise of soon turning to not yet. Her spirit, though bruised, refused to break. Each evening she whispered to herself in Igbo, "God, don't let me vanish here. Don't let me disappear." The women around her, weary faces, lifeless eyes, told her this was normal. "They forget us here," one muttered. Best to stop hoping. Judith refused. She scrubbed her mind clean of despair, clung to every shred of faith she had. Then, on an ordinary morning, something extraordinary happened. A tall man in a dark coat, mid-40s, stern yet kind eyes, walked through the detention block, flanked by two aides. His badge read Judge William Carter. He was conducting an unannounced inspection of conditions. When his gaze swept over the crowded cell and landed on Judith, he slowed. "Why are you here?" he asked, voice low, almost personal. She stepped forward, voice shaking but steady. "Sir, my name is Judith Okoro. I came legally. It was only a mistake in my visa. Please, I've been here 2 months with no hearing." Something in her tone, proud but not bitter, desperate but not broken, made him pause. He took out a notebook, wrote her name, and said nothing else. But later, long after he left, Judith learned he had gone digging through her file himself. 2 weeks later, she stood in an immigration courtroom, wrists free, as Judge Carter personally intervened on her behalf. He cited wrongful detention, bureaucratic error, and ordered her immediate release. When Judith walked out into the cold New York air, it felt like resurrection. But Carter didn't stop there. He found her a cleaning job at the courthouse, connected her with pro bono lawyers, and ensured she had a small apartment in Queens. He refused payment, refused thanks beyond a simple handshake. "Just do something good with your life," he told her. Judith swore to herself, "I will never forget this man." Months passed. She worked hard, took night classes, and slowly carved out a life. Sometimes she passed Carter in the courthouse hallways. They'd exchange brief smiles, a silent acknowledgement, a thread of gratitude woven between them. Yet danger brewed elsewhere, unnoticed. Raul Mendez, a violent gang leader Carter had sentenced to 25 years, was raging behind prison walls. His crew roamed free and vowed revenge. They watched the judge's home. They memorized his routines. Judith noticed strange things first. A black sedan lingering near her subway stop. The same car parked across from the courthouse garage. At first she thought it was coincidence, but unease prickled her neck. She prayed she was wrong. Late one evening, as snow fell in soft white sheets, Judith's phone rang. Carter's calm baritone came through. "Judith, I might need a small favor. Could you pick up some files for me tomorrow?" His voice was tight, quieter than usual. She agreed instantly, heart fluttering at the thought of helping him again. The favor never happened. At 1:27 a.m., her phone screamed to life. Carter's number. She answered to ragged gasps and a hoarse whisper. "Judith, help, they're inside." Her heart stopped. Judge Carter? No response. Just labored breathing. Judith dialed 911 as she bolted out of her apartment, barefoot in the snow, flagging a passing patrol car. Sirens tore through the quiet streets as she directed them to Carter's brownstone. Inside, chaos. Shattered glass, overturned furniture, streaks of blood across polished floors. Carter lay in the hallway, clutching his side, bleeding from a deep knife wound. "Stay with me. You saved me. Now let me save you," Judith whispered fiercely, pressing her hands on the wound, refusing to let him drift away. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital while detectives confirmed what Carter already knew. Raul Mendez's crew was responsible. This attack was retaliation. One gang member lay unconscious at the scene, but two had escaped. 2 weeks later, when Carter was discharged, Judith appeared at his door with groceries and a stubborn glare. "You're not living alone like this. If they come back, you'll need someone here. And I owe you." He protested weakly, but she stayed. Evenings passed quietly. Her cooking, his gratitude, long talks about life, justice, faith. Carter saw not just a grateful migrant, but a resilient woman who had endured more than he ever could imagine. Judith saw not just a judge, but a man willing to fight for strangers. One rainy night, while she changed his bandages, her hands trembled. Their eyes met. His breath caught. "Judith, this isn't right," he murmured, voice unsteady. "Then why does it feel so right?" she whispered. Their lips met. A forbidden kiss, tender yet electric. A moment that left them both shaken and breathless. They pulled away, but the line had already been crossed. The gang didn't stop. One evening as Judith returned from groceries, two masked men cornered her in the hallway. They didn't hurt her. They just left a note. "Stay away from the judge, or you're next." Instead of fear, Judith felt fury. She told Carter everything. Together they met Detective Lopez, who was leading the manhunt for Mendez's associates. Using Carter as bait, they set surveillance around his home. Judith insisted on helping. The gang struck again. But this time, police were ready. In a tense midnight standoff, Judith grabbed a dropped phone and recorded everything. Threats, confessions, even a direct order from Raul Mendez to finish the job. The evidence was bulletproof. Justice came swift. Mendez and his crew faced federal charges for attempted murder and intimidation. Carter publicly commended Judith's bravery in court, though he carefully hid the depth of their personal connection. With the gang locked up, Judith thought the nightmare was over. Carter healed fully, and their bond deepened. Quiet dinners, long walks, laughter that felt almost dangerous. The affection between them grew impossible to deny. But karma wasn't finished. One night, after leaving Carter's home, Judith noticed a different car trailing her. Not Mendez's people, someone else. When she reached her apartment, a man in a suit stepped out, flashing an immigration badge. "Miss Okoro," he said smoothly, "we've been reviewing your file. There are irregularities. We need to talk." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed violently. Carter again, his voice sharp with fear. "Judith, don't come near me. Something's wrong." "They're not done yet." Her stomach turned to ice. She looked at the suited man, his unreadable smile, and then at her phone trembling in her hand. Some battles end. Others are just beginning. When you think the storm has passed, another wave hits harder. Judith saved a man who once saved her, and found forbidden love in the process. But now, forces far bigger than a street gang are closing in. Who's really pulling the strings? And how far will Judge Carter go to protect her? Tell me in the comments. Do you think love will survive what's coming? Or is this just the calm before the real reckoning? Judith froze in the doorway of her apartment, staring at the man in the suit. His smile was professional, almost pleasant, but his eyes were cold and sharp. "Who are you?" she demanded, keeping her voice steady. I told you, he said, flashing his badge again. I'm with Immigration Enforcement. Call me Agent Harlan. There are irregularities in your case file. You and I need to have a private conversation. Now. Her phone buzzed violently again. Judge Carter's number, the same warning voice. Judith, don't come near me. Something's wrong. They're not done yet. Judith's mind raced. Two threats colliding at once. Was Harlan real immigration, or another form of danger sent by someone with power? And why did Carter sound terrified if the gang was already locked away? I'm not going anywhere with you, Judith said firmly, inching her phone toward the emergency dial. Harlan's smile never wavered. Miss Okoro, you're on thin ice already. That visa correction? It may not be as clean as you think. Someone in my office believes you lied about more than your paperwork. Now, we can clear this up quietly, or we can do it publicly. Which do you prefer? A sudden noise from the stairwell. Footsteps running. Judith's heart jumped. For an instant she thought it was backup from the police. But then a hooded man appeared at the landing, holding something metallic in his hand. Harlan spun, reaching inside his jacket. Get inside, he barked. Judith ducked into her apartment as two deafening cracks split the hallway. Gunshots. The hooded man bolted down the stairs. Harlan swore under his breath, holstering his weapon. Stay put, he growled, and chased after the shooter. Shaking, Judith slammed her door, locked it twice, and called Carter. He picked up on the first ring, his voice ragged. Judith, are you safe? Someone just tried to kill me, she cried. And there's this immigration guy. Listen to me, Carter cut in. Don't trust anyone who shows up unannounced. Not even someone with a badge. Something's moving above the courts, Judith. I think the gang was just the surface. Whoever's behind this, they're using government connections. Her mind reeled. What are you talking about? I can't explain on the phone, Carter said urgently. Pack a bag. I'm sending someone I trust to get you out of there. Do not open the door unless they say the phrase, Emerald Skies. Repeat it. Emerald Skies, Judith whispered, clutching her trembling hands. 15 minutes later, a knock rattled the door. Judith's heart pounded as a deep voice called, Emerald Skies. She opened to find Detective Lopez, dressed in plain clothes, glancing nervously up and down the hall. We need to move. Now, he said. This building isn't safe. As they drove through the sleeping city, Lopez explained what Carter had discovered. Sealed court records, campaign donations funneled through shell companies, and hints that Raul Mendez wasn't acting alone. Someone high up had been protecting his operation for years. And now that Carter had survived the attack, they were scrambling to clean up loose ends. Judith stared out the window, stunned. So this isn't just about a gang? No, Lopez said grimly. This is about power, and you're caught in the middle because you're the one person Carter trusts completely. They reached a safe house on the outskirts of Brooklyn. An abandoned brownstone with blackout curtains and a single lamp glowing inside. Carter was waiting, pale but steady, leaning on a cane. The moment Judith saw him, her fear melted into fierce relief. Are you okay? She asked, rushing to his side. I'm alive, he said softly. Thanks to you. His eyes lingered on hers a moment too long, the unspoken bond between them tightening like a wire. Lopez cleared his throat. We can't stay here long. Whoever's pulling these strings has eyes everywhere. But I've got a lead. An ex-accountant who handled Mendez's dirty money. He's willing to talk if we can get him out of the city. Then we move fast, Carter said. Judith, you don't have to be involved in this. I'm not leaving, Judith interrupted, voice like steel. You saved my life once. I'm saving yours, no matter what it takes. That night, as they mapped out their next move on a scarred wooden table, Carter caught Judith watching him. The danger, the darkness around them, only sharpened the electricity that had been growing since that first forbidden kiss. But before either of them could speak, a shadow passed outside the window, and 3 sharp knocks rattled the door. Lopez went for his gun. Carter froze. Judith's breath caught. No one was supposed to know they were here. The 3 knocks froze the room. Detective Lopez signaled for silence, his weapon drawn. Carter motioned Judith behind him. Though his cane made his protective stance look both gallant and fragile. The knocks came again, slower this time. Whoever was outside knew they were there. Lopez edged to the door and barked. "Who is it?" No answer. A 3rd knock, harder now. Judith's heart pounded as she whispered, "Should we run?" Carter shook his head. "If we move blind, we're dead. Whoever found us knows our exits." Lopez peered through the peephole and cursed. It's not just 1. 2 men on the stoop, and a 3rd across the street, pretending to check his phone. These aren't cops. The lamp went out with a click. Darkness swallowed them. "Back way," Lopez hissed. "Judith, stay between us." They slipped through the narrow kitchen door into an alley, just as the front door splintered inward. Heavy boots thudded on the wood floor. Shouts. Flashlight beams sliced through the window panes. "Go, go," Lopez urged, hustling them down the alley to a waiting car he'd hidden earlier. But as they rounded the corner, another vehicle screeched to a halt, cutting them off. A black SUV, windows tinted. The passenger door opened. Out stepped Agent Harlan, the immigration officer who had confronted Judith hours before. His face calm, as if this were a business meeting. Behind him, 2 armed men emerged. "Judge Carter," Harlan said smoothly. "You should have stayed quiet. And Miss Okoro, you should have taken my advice." Lopez raised his gun. "Drop it, now." Harlan's smile didn't fade. "Detective Lopez, you're outnumbered, and you have no idea who you're fighting. This isn't about gangs. This is about cleaning up loose ends." Judith stepped forward despite Carter's warning grip. "Why me? Why are you after me?" "Because you'll leverage," Harlan said flatly. "Carter doesn't play ball, you disappear. Simple." The alley erupted in chaos. Lopez fired first, dropping 1 man's weapon with a well-aimed shot. The 2nd man lunged for Judith. Carter, ignoring the pain in his side, swung his cane with surprising force, knocking the attacker off balance. Judith grabbed a loose brick from the ground and smashed it into the man's arm, sending his gun skittering away. Harlan retreated toward the SUV, shouting orders. "Get them both alive! We need them breathing!" Lopez covered their escape, firing as they dove into his car. Tires screamed as they tore out of the alley, bullets sparking against the fenders. Judith ducked low, heart pounding in her ears, Carter's hand steady on her shoulder despite his own trembling. They raced through Brooklyn's midnight streets until they lost their pursuers near an old industrial yard. Breathing hard, Lopez pulled over. "This ends tonight," Carter said grimly. "We take this evidence to the feds. Not local. They're compromised." Lopez nodded. "That accountant I mentioned? He's ready to testify. He has records linking Harlan to offshore payments, bribes, laundering, all tied to Mendez's operation." "Where is he?" Judith asked. Lopez met her eyes. "Jersey side of the bridge. But they'll be coming for him too." The final chase was relentless. Harlan's men tracked them to the safe house where the accountant hid. A gunfight erupted in the narrow streets. Flashing lights reflected in rain-slick asphalt. Judith, though terrified, kept her head, grabbing the accountant's laptop and driving it to safety while Carter and Lopez shielded her. By dawn, federal marshals arrived, summoned by Carter's old allies. Harlan and his men were arrested in a dramatic takedown at the Holland Tunnel, their weapons still warm. The accountant's files laid everything bare. Years of corruption, cartel money flowing through political offices, and Harlan as the linchpin protecting it all. In the courtroom weeks later, Carter stood tall, wounds healed, as Harlan was sentenced to decades in prison. Judith testified fearlessly, her voice steady as she told the jury how he tried to use her as bait. Justice at last. Karma rolled downhill with crushing weight. Raul Mendez's remaining crew folded under federal charges. The web of corruption unraveled, strand by strand. When it was over, Judith walked out of the courthouse into crisp spring sunlight. Carter waited on the steps, no longer the stern figure from her detention days, but a man whose life she had saved as surely as he'd once saved hers. "You're free now," he said quietly. "Truly free." Judith smiled, tears in her eyes. "Because of you." "No," Carter corrected softly. "Because of who you are. Strong, unbreakable." They stood there, the city humming around them, their bond undeniable. A forbidden affection, yes, but also something deeper. Respect, gratitude, love forged in fire. As they walked away together, a figure watched from across the street. A man in an unmarked suit, speaking softly into a phone. "Yeah," he murmured. "They survived. For now. Do we proceed?" A pause, then a quiet laugh. "Yes, sir. Understood." The car door closed. The engine purred away. Judith never saw him, but the storm clouds were already gathering again. Closing narration for viewers. Judith and Judge Carter faced gangs, corruption, and betrayal, and justice finally caught up to their enemies. But someone even higher is watching, waiting. Is this victory just another trap in disguise? Tell me what you think in the comments. Is Judith truly free, or has she just stepped into a bigger game?